What was the treachery involving the four regents to the Kangxi Emperor? The Kangxi Emperor was enthroned at the age of 7 on the 7th of February 1661. However, he was, under Chinese law, at that time ruled by the Qing dynasty, too young to govern in his own right, so before he could reign officially, imperial decisions were made on his behalf by his four regents, four powerful men who had been appointed into that role by the Grand Empress Dowager Zhaosheng, the wife of the deceased Shunzhi Emperor. Those four men appointed as regents were Sonin, Suksaha, Ebilun and Oboi. So who were they? Sonin, also known as Soni and on occasion is spelled as what with a Y, was a Manchu noble of the Treachery clan who served as one of the four regents of the Kangxi Emperor. His clan belonged to the plain yellow banner of the 8 banner army. Early life of Sonin. Sonin's father, Soze, and uncle, Hifa, were fluent in Mandarin, Mongolian and Manchu, as was Sonin, and served under the Manchu Patriarch Nurhaci. Sonin eventually served under Nurhaci's successor, Hong Taija. Sonin was responsible for the translation of a detailed Manchu history in addition to translating books about Chinese statecraft into the Manchu language. In 1643, Sonin had become the Grand Minister of the Imperial Bodyguard, and upon the death of Hong Taija in September of 1643, Sonin used his allies to ensure only a son of Hong would succeed to the throne. Soon after, Dogon was chosen as the Prince Regent for Hong Taija's son Fulin, who reigned as the Shunzhi Emperor with the Manchu victory at the Battle of Shanghai Pass in May 1644, enabling the Qing to take control of northern China and move their capital from Mukden to Beijing. There were, from 1645, factional struggles which led to Sonin being in and out of favour, sentenced to death, pardoned and dismissed from office on 2 occasions, the second time in 1648. As regent, despite this, before the Shunzhi Emperor died, he appointed Sonin as one of the 4 regents to support the young Kangxi Emperor. Sonin was the most senior of the 4 and assisted the young emperor in defending his power against Oboi, who wanted to increase his own level of power over the young emperor. A power struggle erupted among the regents, which left the aging Sonin too weak to exert his leadership. Sonin's son, Songgotu, later assisted the young emperor in removing Oboi from his role as regent. On the 16th of October 1665, the Kangxi Emperor, at just 11 years old, was married to Sonin's granddaughter, Lady Hasuri, who was just a few months older than her new husband. Sonin died on the 12th of August 1667. His death provided a series of challenges to the regency, led by Oboi, to assert their own power. Suksaha was a Manchu official from the Nara clan and as a military officer served in the Qing dynasty. He was nominated as one of the 4 regents in the early years of the Kangxi Emperor's reign, before eventually falling out with another of those regents and sentenced to death. Biography. Suksaha was a member of the Nara clan, was part of the plain white banner within the 8 banner army, and distinguished himself in military campaigns in Joseon Korea and against the Ming dynasty during the 1630s and 40s. He was most notably a part of the force that led to the surrender of Ming commander Hong Chen-cho in 1641 at Songshan and Jinzhou. After the appointment of the Shunzhi Emperor, Suksaha was given the role of trusted advisor to Empress Dowager Zhaosheng. After Shunzhi died in 1661, Suksaha was one of the 4 regents appointed to oversee ruling the Qing dynasty. Suksaha was the youngest of the 4 regents. During his role as regent, Suksaha became entangled in the political and personal disputes with Oboi, as the latter looked to consolidate his own power through discrediting the other regents. Sonin was at that time old and frail. Ebilun was viewed as being weak, and thus Suksaha was, in the mind of Oboi, his only serious political rival. Shortly after the death of Sonin in August 1667, Suksaha asked to retire from his role as regent, as he was no longer able to mediate on the conflict between himself and Oboi. Possibly on the advice of Oboi, an investigation was launched by the Kangxi Emperor to look into the motives of Suksaha's request to resign. The investigation took just 2 days, and Suksaha and his male relatives were arrested, with Suksaha found guilty of 24 grave crimes and sentenced to death by slow slicing. It was also recommended that several of Suksaha's relatives be executed, along with members of the imperial guard who supposedly connived in these alleged schemes. The death sentence on Suksaha was eventually reduced to that of hanging. However, several years later, the imperial court accepted the claim that the sentencing had been conducted in haste and rescinded the order to penalize his sons and male kin. Ebilun. Ebilun was a Manchu noble and warrior of the Neo-Haru clan and became famous for being one of the 4 regents to the young Kangxi Emperor. Ebilun was regarded as being a passive figure during his role as a regent, and was eventually disgraced by the far more powerful Oboi, who considered Ebilun to not be his political supporter. Ebilun was stripped of his titles by the emperor, although he later regained his noble rank, with several of his descendants becoming influential figures within the Qing government. Biography. Ebilun lived his early life just north of what is today the North Korean border. He was the youngest of 16 sons and served in the bordered yellow banner. His father, Aidu, was a close associate of the Manchu patriarch Nahachi, and his mother was believed to have been a cousin of Nahachi. Hong Taiji, on becoming emperor, gave Aidu a posthumous rank of Viscount, which Ebilun immediately inherited, but lost in 1637 after he tried to interfere in a trial involving his niece. Ebilun was granted a minor hereditary title in 1646 after dislodging Ming loyalist He Tongjiao from Hubei. Despite this, due to his allegiance to the Yellow Banners, Ebilun was treated with suspicion by Dogon, the Prince Regent of the young Shunzhi Emperor, whose affiliation was with the White Banners. In 1648, Ebilun's nephew, Houge, Dogon's main rival, accused his uncle of opposing Dogon during the 1643 succession. Ebilun was sentenced to death, but this was commuted before it could be carried out, but half of Ebilun's property was confiscated, together with his title of nobility being revoked. After the death of Dogon, Ebilun's titles were restored, and he was eventually entrusted to assist in the upbringing of the Shunzhi Emperor's son, Kangxi. On being appointed regent, Ebilun was ranked 3rd of the 4, in theory only above Oboi. However, Ebilun bowed down to Oboi on nearly all decisions as the latter gained power. After the death of Sonin, Oboi was the sole challenger to Suksaha. In 1667, the Kangxi Emperor assumed personal rule, and Ebilun was given the title of first-class duke. Ebilun was then again sentenced to death after allegedly committing 21 crimes after the emperor had made his move against Oboi. This death sentence was later commuted, and Ebilun regained his title, which could be inherited by his descendants. Ebilun's sons went on to serve emperors, and 3 of his daughters became imperial consorts of the Kangxi Emperor. Oboi, the last but certainly not the least of the 4 regents featured here, was a prominent Manchu military commander and courtier who served under 3 successive emperors during the early years of the Qing dynasty. Early life and military career. Oboi was born into the Manchu Gualgia clan, which was the clan of distinction. Militarily, since Oboi's grandfather, Sogo, submitted to Nahachi in 1588. The clan was militarily attached to the bordered Yellow Banner, which was under the command of Hijachi's son, Hong Taiji. Oboi's father, Yusi, was a senior military officer and one-time garrison commander of the Manchu capital Mukden, while his uncle, Fyongdong, was one of Nahachi's most trusted generals. There's very little mentioned in the early years of Oboi. As a third son, he was not in a position to inherit any hereditary position in his family hierarchy. He was first mentioned in 1632 after his triumphant return from a minor raid into Ming territories, when he was permitted to keep his spoils as a reward. Oboi's military career officially began in 1634 in the Banner's Cavalry Guard unit, where he established himself in battle several times against Ming forces and was renowned for his personal bravery. These distinctions earned Oboi a hereditary commissioned rank as captain of a company of soldiers. Oboi again showed his bravery when volunteering and capturing the small but strategically important Ka Island, known at that time as Pidao in Chinese, to the south of the Yala River, and from where the Ming were launching raids into the Liaodong Peninsula. This victory earned another promotion, this time to the rank of hereditary colonel, 3rd class, and the honorific title of Baturu, which means brave warrior in the Manchu language. By 1641, Oboi gained the rank of full colonel after securing victories in the sieges of Jinzhou and Songshan, and given command of the Bayarai Guards of the bordered Yellow Banner. Hong Taiji died in 1643, and Oboi supported the late ruler's oldest son Huge over the succession crisis that followed with Dogon. Oboi continued with military campaigns as the Qing successfully took control of China in 1644, and in 1645 he was again promoted, this time to the rank of general. However, the tide turned in 1648 when Huge was imprisoned by Dogon, and Oboi was given a death sentence which was commuted to a loss of rank. Oboi, for his unswerving loyalty to his banner and services to the Qing government, was appointed a cabinet minister by the Shunzhi Emperor, while also bestowing upon him the title of Marquis of the first rank. That level of trust in Oboi's loyalty toward the Shunzhi Emperor meant he was elevated to the hereditary Duke of the second rank, and of more importance appointed as the commander of the imperial bodyguard, a post that doubled as a de facto chief of police in the capital. In this role, he effectively became the emperor's much-feared enforcer. During the reign of Shunzhi, Oboi was responsible for the arrest and execution of several noblemen found guilty of dubious levels of perceived crimes. Regency. The Shunzhi Emperor died of smallpox on the 5th of February 1661 at the age of just 24, and as mentioned earlier in this video, the 4 regents were appointed to assist the young Kangxi Emperor in ruling the dynasty until he came of age. 3 of the regents were from the Yellow Banners, previously under the authority of the Shunzhi Emperor's brother Huge, while the 4th regent, Suksaha, had served in the White Banner under Dogon. This eventually led to conflict, especially after Sonin, the most senior regent, suffered from poor health, and Oboi dominated Ebilun into decisions that favoured Oboi and sidelined Suksaha. By 1667, when Sonin realised he did not have long to live, he attempted to restore the balance by petitioning the then 14-year-old emperor to assume personal rule to quell the power of Oboi. Kangxi took the reins of power 1 month after the death of Sonin and downgraded the 3 remaining regents to the status of advisors. However, in reality, the young emperor found difficulty in curbing the power of Oboi. Conflict with the Kangxi Emperor. Oboi was able to force the execution of Suksaha, had total control of Ebilun, and controlled affairs of state almost totally to his advantage. Once a young emperor was settled into his new role, he had Oboi arrested on 30 charges and was sentenced to death. This sentence was then reduced to imprisonment on account of his past military achievements. After his death, Oboi was given a pardon and titles by both Kangxi and his successor, the Yongzheng Emperor, but Kangxi's grandson, the Qianlong Emperor, reduced those titles after reviewing the merits and demerits of Oboi. In popular culture, Oboi features in Chinese popular culture, firstly as an antagonist in the novel The Deer and the Cauldron by Jin Yong. In this novel, Oboi is depicted as being a cruel, power-hungry regent, constantly plotting to usurp the throne from the Kangxi Emperor with the help of protagonist Wei Xiaobao. In the novel, the Emperor removes Oboi from power and imprisons him. The outcome leaves Oboi dead after being killed in prison by Wei Xiaobao. In the 2017 Chinese TV series Legend of Dragon Pearl, Oboi is played by Xiao Rongsheng, who portrays the character as an oppressive block to the Emperor in his quest to regain full political power and reaffirm his position in authority. That brings us to the end of this video that highlighted the story of the 4 regents assigned to the early years of the Kangxi Emperor, and how one of them in particular used methods such as intimidation to become his tool of power until that control was stopped by the Emperor he was assigned to protect. If you have enjoyed watching and has shown you a little detail of life and events here in China, then your subscribing to my channel would mean a lot to me. Thank you for watching. Make sure you click on the link to the next video, and until the next time, goodbye for now.